No one suspected a thing until the house turned into a slaughter scene and the Warunge name was marked forever. What could drive Lawrence Warunge to turn his own home into the site of a massacre? Today, on Lost Crimes, we connect the dots. Subscribe and stay with us for Night of Terror in Kiambu, the Lawrence Warunge family massacre. This is Lawrence Warunge, born in Karura village, Kiambu County in 1999. The first son of Nicholas Warunge and Anne and Jerry. Anne was a health professional. Nicholas, a respected public servant whose commitment to providing for the family eventually led him to seek opportunities in the United States. Lawrence was the eldest, followed by his brother Christian, two sisters, and a cousin, Maxwell, whom the family adopted and raised as their own. Together, they became the Warunge family, rooted in Karura village. They lived in a well-appointed home, built for them by Nicholas, who worked tirelessly to ensure his children had everything they needed. Both parents were deeply service-oriented, and their shared goal was clear: give the kids the best life possible. Whenever they reached a milestone or came into a bit of extra money, they celebrated with the children, moments Anne made sure to keep alive, especially while Nicholas was abroad. Like many Kenyan parents, they made sure their children attended good schools. Lawrence Warunge started at a private school in Kiambu, then moved on to the Pioneer School, and later enrolled at Mount Kenya University to study information technology, a path that looked promising. Yet something troubled him. Normally quiet and self-contained, he often preferred to live in his own world. He was not interested in sports, but he read novels, which seemed to spark his imagination. Despite everything his parents did for him, Lawrence could not shake the feeling that he was less loved than his siblings. The adoption of his cousin Maxwell particularly bothered him, and over time, it pushed him toward an emotional edge. The turbulence created a rift between Lawrence and his mother. Away at university, Lawrence was finally living on his own. On campus, he made new friends, enjoyed a bit of attention, and tasted the ordinary fun of student life. The quiet boy seemed, for a while, to find joy in small routines. Most evenings, he stayed off campus, watching films and series in his rented place. That habit would eventually stir old resentments, especially after he started a new show, Killing Eve, a British spy thriller about a determined investigator chasing a charismatic assassin named Villanelle. Stylish and meticulous, Villanelle kills with precision and slips past capture, a character designed to be both compelling and unsettling. When Lawrence watched the episode in which Villanelle confronts her mother for loving her less, something clicked. It echoed the grievance he had been nursing, feeling less favored, pushed to the edges of his own family. In that moment, a seed of an idea took hold, a way to solve his problem. He investigated more and more, also buying these two crime books. Thanks to meticulous research, he built what he believed was a workable plan. It relied on disguise and on using someone else to purchase key items, a tactic meant to misdirect detectives and keep suspicion off his trail. With no close friends to enlist, Lawrence decided to recruit a woman. He had no girlfriend and few acquaintances, so he turned to Sarah Muthoni, a young hustler he met in Thika. She sold boiled eggs and sausages to get by. Coming from a modest background, she worked hard to change her fortunes, and when the son of a well-off family showed interest, she fell for him. She was not the kind of company he would introduce at home, but for Lawrence, she was useful. Sarah entered the picture with a few questions. At that point, Lawrence presented as a quiet university student who felt marginalized at home. She had no idea he was pulling her into a criminal plan that would place her in serious jeopardy. To her, he looked calm, soft-spoken, and dependable. Seeing a brighter future with a man from a wealthy family, Sarah agreed to what he asked. His first request was to rent a house in Mai Mahiu. She did, lying to the caretaker that her mother would not allow her to stay with a boyfriend at home. Lawrence's real goal was to use the place as a staging base. By 24 December 2020, they had a bare room with only a mattress, a quiet address, ready for the next steps of his plan. Meanwhile, the Warunge family was enjoying the festive season now that Nicholas was back, unaware of what was coming. He spent time catching up with friends, while Anne and the children soaked in the warmth of Christmas gatherings, hosting relatives at home. It was a good holiday and a hopeful year's end, rolling into the first days of 2021. From Lawrence's perspective, none of it felt good. He made a strategic choice: execute the plan before university resumed. He picked Tuesday, 5 January 2021, the first day of classes in Kenya. With the date set, he spent his final days tightening details, including a disguise. On the morning of 5 January, he went to see Sarah and asked her to buy 2 knives. She did so without hesitation. After dropping her off, Lawrence purchased women's trousers, a jacket, women's shoes, a wig, and even a female doll, from which he removed the head, an odd addition meant to aid the disguise and misdirection. Leaving the supermarket, he walked to Holy Family Basilica and prayed, asking God to forgive him for the sins he was about to commit. Back in Karura village, the Warunge household woke as usual. It was opening day for schools, and, like many Kenyan families, the morning was a rush. Nicholas drove one daughter to school in Karura, and Anne took the other toward Kirinyaga. The pieces of an ordinary day were in motion, while in the background, Lawrence's plan moved toward its appointed hour. At about 4 p.m., Lawrence left the basilica and caught transport back toward his childhood home. He arrived around 7 p.m. At the compound, he met James Kenyan, the casual worker who helped around the property, and asked him for a metal bar, without saying why. Moments later, Lawrence ambushed him, striking the back of his head with the metal bar several times, then using the knife purchased in Thika to cut his throat. It was the first attack of the night, executed quickly and without warning, setting the tone for what would follow inside the house. Lawrence stayed near the first scene until about 8 p.m., when he saw his father arrive carrying Balozi beers. Soon after, he scaled the perimeter wall, received an electric jolt from the fence, but still managed to get inside. He went to the main switch and cut the power. Inside the compound, he saw his mother in the kitchen. He had a small amount of paraffin, which he used to soak a green paper bag and set it alight just outside the kitchen door. When she stepped out to check, he struck her with the metal bar, causing fatal injuries. The commotion drew Maxwell, who ran out to help and was attacked as well. Upstairs, Nicholas had been in the bedroom with his beer, unaware that the family was being attacked. Hearing the noise, Nicholas came downstairs and encountered Lawrence, now bloodstained. He retreated upstairs, and Lawrence followed. In the struggle that followed, Nicholas went over the balcony and fell, sustaining serious injuries. As he crawled toward the door, Lawrence caught up to him and stabbed him repeatedly. Lawrence then moved room to room looking for his younger brother. He found Christian Njenga hiding under his bed. Christian pleaded for his life. Lawrence proceeded with the attack. After the assaults, Lawrence showered, ate the food his mother had been preparing, and watched a movie. He then slept in his father's bed until about 4 a.m. At daybreak, he arranged transport in one of the delivery vans and left the house, while the victims lay inside. Afterward, he traveled to Naivasha, then on to Mai Mahiu to his girlfriend's rental house. She wasn't there. In the yard, he burned parts of his clothing and destroyed his parents' mobile phones, items he had taken from the family home to erase traces. And his sisters? They were the only survivors, away at school when the attacks unfolded. By the next morning, neighbors noticed an unnatural quiet at the Warunge home. No one came out, the doors stayed shut, and suspicion hardened into certainty when the metallic smell of blood began to drift from inside. When entry was finally made, they found a horrific scene. Multiple bodies, heavy bloodstains, a home turned into a crime scene. Kiambu was in shock. Police were alerted immediately. Responding officers described one of the most brutal scenes they had encountered in years. This was not a robbery, not an external raid. It was an internal massacre, carried out with personal violence. a bloody knife lay among the silent evidence. Most unsettling of all, Lawrence was missing. The search began that same day. Detectives followed leads that tied him to Sarah Muthoni. Rumors spread that he had fled with her and that they planned to escape. Sarah denied being at the house, but admitted she knew of Lawrence's intentions. She was questioned and taken into custody. Meanwhile, the suspect was on the move. The pursuit ended 3 days later. Police captured Lawrence on Friday 8 in the Mai Mahiu area, not far from Kiambu. He was exhausted, showing injuries, and he did not resist. How did they find him? He switched on his phone, and investigators tracked the signal, closing in for the arrest. In custody, during interrogations, Lawrence gave a cold, methodical account of the night. He described how he killed each family member, why he believed it was his only way out, and how he had planned every step. The statement was detailed enough to chill investigators. The sequence of attacks, the locations, and the moments when family members tried to flee, only to be caught. He also said he drew inspiration from television series about killers, studying ways to act without being detected. He spoke of resentment toward his father, whom he viewed as authoritarian, and toward his mother, whom he accused of controlling his life. In his telling, his siblings were merely part of an environment that felt suffocating to him. These were his claims, not excuses, not justifications, laid out with a dispassionate tone that underscored the premeditation investigators had already begun to map from the timeline and evidence. The media quickly labeled him the Kiambu killer. Front pages showed a cold stare, handcuffs, and a police escort, while neighbors shouted insults and demands for justice outside the courthouse. The Warunge family funeral was another painful chapter. Hundreds gathered to say goodbye to Nicholas, Anne, and the children. The tears of relatives and friends stood in stark contrast to Lawrence's cool, clinical account. The coffins in a row became a lasting symbol of a wound that would not heal, a reminder that beyond headlines and hearings, there were lives ended, futures erased, and a community left to grieve. Sarah Muthoni was also detained and questioned. Prosecutors wanted to know the extent of her role. She insisted she was not present during the murders, that she only knew pieces of Lawrence's idea rather than the full plan. Investigators pressed on, comparing her account with receipts, phone records, and the Mai Mahiu rental to determine what she knew, when she knew it, and how her actions fit into Lawrence's preparation. Finally, she was released after reaching an agreement to become a state witness against Warunge. However, she became an ambiguous character. Was she truly an accomplice, or just a passive witness swept away by Lawrence's darkness? The court process moved slowly. Lawrence appeared in court, but the case required psychiatric evaluations to determine fitness to stand trial. The court ordered him remanded for 30 days, after which a mental assessment would decide if he was ready to be tried. Throughout interviews and hearings, his affect was flat. He showed no remorse, offered no apology, and described the killings as if reporting a task. To clinicians, the presentation suggested a severe underlying disorder. To neighbors, the wider community, and much of the country, it confirmed the image of a monster, a young man who turned his own home into a crime scene and then spoke of it with chilling calm. In April 2021, a mental health report from Mathare National Teaching and Referral Hospital found that Warunge had responded to treatment and was mentally stable. Justice Patricia Gichohi ordered the case to proceed and set Thursday, 15 April 2021 for plea. On that date, Warunge pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of murder. In March 2022, the defense formally sought bail. The family of the victims strongly opposed it. In filings, relatives told the court that even in custody, Warunge had threatened to kill his 2 surviving sisters and other family members. In his initial police statement, Warunge had admitted he planned to target the sisters but did not carry it out because they were at school, claims that became central to the court's denial of bail. As of the most recent public updates, Lawrence Warunge has not been released or sentenced. He remains in remand, awaiting trial. 2023 and early 2024, family statements and court notes pointed to continued adjournments. In short, pretrial detention continues, with the matter pending rescheduling in the Kiambu courts. Without question, the night of terror in Kiambu endures as a warning. Monsters are not always in dark alleys or distant forests. Sometimes they are at home. Sometimes they share your dinner. Sometimes they carry your blood. When repression, rage, and madness find the right moment, an ordinary life can turn into a collective nightmare. Thank you for watching. If you value careful, respectful storytelling, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss what comes next. Take care, stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode.